Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to another episode of MSP Unfiltered, sponsored by Rev.io. I am Brook Lee, Senior Director of Community, and I have a very special guest for our very first live podcast that we are doing. Everybody welcome Ryan Koontz. He is our SVP of Sales here at Rev.io. So quick rundown and housekeeping before we get started. I do have the chat open. So we will take questions live. So if somebody's got a really cool question, by all means, drop it in the chat. We will do our best to answer your questions. We've got a lot to get through today. Anybody that registered for this live podcast, we will make sure that you get a copy of this. We do post it on our YouTube channel at the end. And we also have a really cool giveaway today. We've got an MSP sales handbook that is based on what Ryan and his team have built here at Rev.io. It is free, no gatekeeping, no emails, no nothing. So we're going to share that with everybody as well. So we'll have a QR code at the end, and then we'll also send you a link as well if you weren't able to make it today. So welcome everybody, and let's get this party started. So today we are talking about sort of like one of the most hated words in the MSP space. It's sales. Nobody likes the salespeople. So I decided to tackle this one because y'all know I love a good spicy topic. But we really have this dialed in and figured out here at Rev, and that is in no short order due to some of the things that Ryan has been able to do here in his tenure. So everybody welcome Ryan. Ryan, why don't you give us sort of a little of your background, sort of maybe what you did before Rev, and then kind of your path of what you've done since you've got here and where you started and kind of where you're at now.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. Name's Ryan Koontz, SVP of Sales here at Rev.io. I've been with the company for 12 years now, so it's been quite a journey. I actually came to Rev.io right after they relocated to Atlanta. When we were much smaller, as the executive team was putting together their first sales and marketing organization. We were actually under a different name back then, but we had around 20 total employees and only 6 that were like really dedicated to selling. So the concept of like the SDR AE split, none of that had really existed yet. So I was responsible all my prospecting, full sales cycle to close. So it was a very interesting time back then. But coming in, what was really important is there was a sales model that I was coached and trained on that our leadership team, Evan and Brent, had brought over from previous organizations that they had worked on and had kind of adapted to the software that we were selling. And so from the very beginning, we had a lot of structure, which is very important for a younger sales organization. But back then, we were only selling our communications billing platform. We weren't well known in the space by any means, and we had a total addressable market of around 8,000 companies. So we had to be very
Okay.
aggressive in our efforts. And yeah, it's a completely different company now, as you can
So did you
believe.
train under Evan?
I
Because
did.
I
Evan was
consider
VP
Evan
of
like
Sales.
hardcore sales dude. Evan's like
He
sales
was.
dude to his core. And you still see it sometimes when he hops on the sales calls. It's like his sales stuff comes back, and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah, Evan. Evan was leading the sales organization back then, and selling into the telecommunications industry is a lot different than selling to MSPs. It's old
100%.
school sales, and so we've had to really adjust our selling style to match these different verticals that we're going after now. But yeah, it's been a fun journey. I'm excited to share all the insights I have.
So I kind of wanted to talk, we're going to kind of break this down into some chunks today. And one of the first things I want to talk about is sort of the why MSPs struggle with sales. I see it all the time, all of the shows I go to, all the consulting I do, it is definitely something that they sort of struggle with. And we have this sort of thing in our head as an MSP is if we do really good work, then it's just going to sell itself. And sort of, but sort of not. So what are your thoughts sort of on that? Hey, if I do really great stuff, it's just that somehow automatically, it's like people are going to just be knocking down my door.
Yeah, I mean we see it all the time. MSPs are trained to solve problems, but not necessarily create urgency. Engineers close tickets, not
Okay.
deals. So it's just kind of a different mindset. I think MSPs are selling a lot more than they realize because anytime you're going into a business and you're walking them through all your offerings and asking them what they're using for EDR and MFA, you are diagnosing the state of the union inside that business. And whether you realize it or not, you are selling to them. It's just changing that stigma, which I know we're going to talk about on where that line is of being a pushy salesperson versus being a trusted advisor.
And so I'm going to back up 2 steps because you were talking about, and this is, I tell everybody, we sort of have a plan, but then like things we talk about, and then I like change direction. So if you want to be on the podcast, be prepared for that.
Oh,
So you
ready?
were talking about the stigma and about being a pushy salesperson. So I want to back up because part of that I think goes to what you were talking about, how we have had to change here at Rev to sell to the MSP space versus the telco space. So I think sort of that the pushy salesperson is nobody really likes it. You operate very differently in the telco space. So like the way that you guys have changed how you sell to an MSP versus a telco, how did you convince the salespeople here to make that shift? Like what does that look like?
Well, it didn't take much convincing because we forced them to, right? It
Fine,
wasn't
you
really an
can't do
option,
that.
to be honest. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we have a reputation to protect, right? We are very
Yeah.
confident in the solutions and products that we have here. And if you have a overly aggressive salesperson that doesn't listen and is just bull in a china shop and not being respectful of people's requests, that hurts your brand at the end of the day. But at the same time, we are still cold calling. We are still sending outbound cold emails to anybody that we think could benefit from our product. But I think the messaging is a little bit different. We need to show that we're doing our research. We need to show that we understand the industry, um, and I think that's ultimately the biggest thing is making sure that we're respectful. And if they tell us like, hey, we're absolutely happy with the current platform that we're using, we may ask them a few follow-up questions to that, but we're going to give them a break and maybe we'll follow up with them down the road.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So We've I'm Miss MSP down here in St. Pete, Florida. I'm the owner. I got like 7, 8 techs. I got somebody doing finance for me. I got a dispatcher, whatever. And I'm the only person that's doing the selling. But at some point, I tell people, you can't work in the business. You got to work on it. Because if I'm in it all day long, then I'm not going to be able to grow this MSP. So at some point, I got to take a step back and say, okay, somebody else is going to have to help me sell. I can't do it myself all the time. So, but what I see happen a lot is that the person that's doing it, and it's like 99% of the time it's the owner to start out with, is that we don't have the stuff set up so that I can make sure that person is going to be successful. And we can talk about process, but the biggest one I think is sort of like the pipeline. I've seen that one happen in every MSP that I've consulted in. Is they hire a salesperson, they hand them an empty box with nothing in it and say, hey, go figure it out and go sell some stuff. And I
Yeah.
know one of the things that you want to talk about today was pipeline. Is how do we figure out, how do we sort of get that pipeline primed and ready to go, and then we're handing off something that's sort of already in progress.
I think before you get to pipeline, you got to take a step back and you have to understand what your total addressable market is. And you need to have those companies in the CRM or even a spreadsheet, just some place where if you were to bring in a salesperson, they have a hit list of potential customers that they could reach out to. I think it's important to understand what your total addressable market is so that you can understand how big of a sales team can I really take on down the road and how many do I need. Um, so I think the first step is document everything that you possibly can, specifically the stuff that's working. So when you do sell a customer, when you're by yourself, what questions do you ask? What objections are you hearing? What's making somebody select you as their vendor and partner, and working backwards from that. What were all the activities that went into that successful engagement? I think also looking at the situations where it didn't go well. You document everything. That's the only way that you're going to be able to look back at it and make corrections and be able to replicate it for someone that's coming in brand new. You might be bringing someone in that has no experience in your specific vertical. So I would say documentation, documentation, documentation.
And I would
I'm a
say that's probably
stickler
the
for that.
thing that MSPs stink at in general. It's also something
Yeah.
owners hate to do, but it's like it's what you're going to shoot yourself in the foot without it. So just like we really harp on all of the techs and the engineers, you boys and girls have to document everything on the ticket. Any changes you make, you got to document it in the documentation platform. I want to see notes on the ticket. The same thing has to be on the owner. So you've got to eat your own dog food. So if you're going to do this, you've got to make sure you're documenting everything that you're doing, And I'm not saying that you got to put as an owner the time on the ticket, but you need to write it down somewhere. Like, to your point, it's a spreadsheet, it's a Word document, it's SharePoint, it's, Hoodoo, IT glue, whatever. I don't care, but you got to put
Yeah.
it down there because we have to have something to give that person. Um,
Yep.
the pushback that you're going to get from MSP owners is it's the nobody can do it like I do it. I hear that over and over again. Well, I'm the expert. I built this company. I know what we can do better than anybody else. And no salesperson is going to be able to sell the way that I sell my company. So you come in, I'm hiring you as a sales consultant to help me figure this out. That's the first thing I'm going to tell you. What are you going to tell me back? Because I hear that every single time.
Yeah, if the sales process only works when you're in the room, then you don't have a sales process. You just have a personality that has tribal knowledge and can connect with
There you
somebody.
go.
It's not anything that you're going to be able to replicate to somebody else. So that would be the first thing that I would say. Um,
Okay.
second,
So
yeah, go ahead.
yes, no.
I was just gonna say secondary to that is, we've got to have documentation on what are the expectations for someone in that role, and what are the success metrics and the KPIs. Because the beautiful thing about sales is they're very specific metrics that can tell the story and help you make decisions where you're not having to do that based off of feel. But you can't take advantage of that until you start tracking it. So like from day one here, we track every cold call that every rep makes and how many of those calls actually turn into a conversation. So we have a call to contact ratio. And then we
Okay.
also track how many of those contacts agree to take a meeting and take that discovery call. So we have the ratios across the entire team and that
Okay.
contact to discovery call set. And then it goes down from there. Discovery set to complete. How many of our first meetings go to a second meeting? How many of our demos actually close and become customers? So we can see this across each individual on the team, but we can also see this over years and years of historic trends. And we use this data to, like, when we have a percentage of growth that we want to hit. We need to work backwards from that and understand how many deals we need to close per month. Based on that, how many reps are we going to need? How many activities are they going to need to complete per day, per week, per month, per quarter? It really doesn't have to be that difficult, but you have to start tracking everything as soon as you can.
And I think that's something that MSPs in general, I mean, we do it anyway. We track metrics for everything, like on the help desk. How long does it take us to respond to a ticket? How long does a ticket stay in client responded status? How long does it take us on a general help desk ticket? What is our like average time to close? So those are all things that we're tracking already. So we're used to tracking metrics, but they need to, I guess, to your point, really work hard on applying that same sort of mentality to the sales side, that sales is not different. The metrics are different, but the tracking metrics to be able, because that's how we determine on the technical side of the house, when is it time to hire a new engineer or a technician? When
Exactly.
are we upside down on an agreement because I'm spending more hours on this than I'm getting paid for? And all of those things are numbers that we track. So we can do that same thing on the sales side, but we have to sort of make it that mindset. I do want to talk about something a little bit spicy, because I think that not the numbers, but I think how you sell, I think it depends on your market. I don't, and I argue with people about this a lot, because what I sell in Savannah, Georgia, I can't sell the same way in Manhattan or Chicago or LA. It's a different market, it's a different everything. So when you have people that have an MSP and the total addressable market, the TAM that we have, especially if we don't really go outside of our geographic region. And I know everybody's gonna be like, oh, Brooke, we can do anything everywhere. I get that, but a lot of MSPs still stay local. They work in a geographic space that's close to them where they can go to because that's just their bread and butter. They feel comfortable with it and they're very successful doing it. So if I'm trying to sell in Savannah versus trying to sell in Chicago, I don't think the metrics or any of those things that you're going to measure and the processes are different, but I think how you approach it is very different. Because a lot of times, like the stuff that we do here at Rev, like you said, we're on the phone, we're calling people, we're sending emails. But like when I was working at our MSP in Savannah, we go to somebody's office, like we go visit them, right? We set up an appointment and I go there to their conference room, or they come to my office and they come to my conference room, and we have sort of these sit down conversations or whatever. So how do you feel about doing that type of sales versus everything digital or remote?
It's a great question. I'll start by saying we will go and meet with someone in person over a virtual meeting every single time. I think it's the scalability of that. The amount of time
Mhm.
it takes to travel to somebody. I mean, we're going next week down to Tampa to do an
I know
in-person
you
meeting.
boys are coming down to Tampa. We're
Yeah,
going to go visit a
e-
client, and I'm
exactly.
going to go across the bridge, pick you boys up at the airport, and we're going to make this work.
So we will absolutely do it, especially if it's the right opportunity and they're in a buying cycle and they're of a certain size. But I think the power of virtual selling is that you can reach out to, collaborate with an exponentially amount more people than if you were to be in your car driving around from location to location. So I think there's a blend of that. And if you're in a local market, maybe the initial meeting is remote and you make sure that there's a business case there. But if you have the opportunity to meet with somebody in person, you have to take advantage of it. It's just finding the right time in the sales process to execute
Because
it.
I think sometimes it's like they want to know that I tell people, and I think sometimes they lose sight of an MSP is that if I can help this business be more successful, then they're going to grow. They're going to hire more people. That helps my community. It puts more people that have jobs in the community. It brings more money into the community. It keeps kids from graduating from college and leaving to go somewhere else because now we're having those more opportunities. So I think when you have an MSP that's invested in the community that way, and you can do an on-site sales call and go meet with people and really share your passion for how you want to help them grow, then again, I think there's value in that. To your point, yes, it's not always like scalable, if especially if you have an MSP where you help people that are all over the US or whatever. But I always am a big fan of if you can go sit down with somebody face to face and you can have like a handshake on something, I think that carries real value and weight. Again, and we're doing it down here. We can't do it all the time, but we're going to go visit
Yeah.
somebody in Tampa, and have those conversations. So I think if you can, if you have the ability, you should, because I think it just carries weight. That face to face, sitting across the conference room table, shaking hands at the end of this thing. I think there's just, I don't know, there's something cool and special about that.
And if you're up against a competitor that is nationwide, a bigger player, that's going to be your biggest differentiator. The fact that you can walk in there, sit down with
100%.
them.
I do that all the
Yeah.
time. I was like, this dude out here in California, no offense to California people, but if I'm in Savannah, that dude in California does not give a flying flip whether or not y'all are growing, successful, or whatever. They want your business. They want to be able to protect you. They want to be able to do all of your MSP stuffs that you need done. But I want to be invested as you as a business because I want you to grow and be successful. It helps my community overall. So I do think there's parts of that that you can weave into the, I don't know what you want to call it, like the sales story, the sales process, sort of like why
Yeah.
pick me over somebody that's national?
I think in the MSP market, that's a game changer. A little bit different in software, right? Because we can do so much remote, but having the ability to go in and shake hands and get to know everybody in the office is huge. So we're on the same page there.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about we've kind of talked about some processes. We've talked about the pipeline, making sure that you get those things ready to go. So I want to use for an example, like other than, you guys have the metrics or whatever, how do you guys know when it's time to hire somebody new? So I'm the owner and I've got this. How do I know when it's time for me to really start looking? Like I've got my processes, I've been documenting, I've got everything down, I've got sort of the total addressable market, I've got the spreadsheets, I'm pulling stuff out of the CRM. How do I know when it's time for me to sort of like break that off? I need to hand off part of this to somebody else. In your experience, where do you feel that sort of happens?
I think it's different from business to business and depends on what vertical you're in. But I think if you're a solo operator, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this, Brooke, too, but what percentage of their time focused on running sales calls would you say is like critical mass where the other areas of the business start to suffer? And I would say 20, 30% of your time, if you're having initial sales calls with potential customers when you could be um, being more strategic, I think that's a good inflection point to start looking at bringing somebody in.
So I
And that
like
first
that.
hire, yeah, that first hire might be someone entry level that can just kind of help facilitate, help manage the sales meetings, get the calendar invites out, um, help you get organized. That could be that SDR role and someone you can
And
invest
I
your
think
time
that's
into and
really, I think
essentially
that's
train up.
overlooked. I think that's
Yeah,
overlooked because I think a lot of times, and I do want to talk about because we do that sort of here at Rev, is I think that the owners of these MSPs, the guys and girls that are the owners, and they're the person that's running the show, they assume that they have to go hire a very expensive, very seasoned salesperson, right? I mean, a person that's going to cost us X amount of like base, and then I've got to have the comp that's going to be able to cover that. And this guy or girl has been in the space for 20 years, blah, blah, blah. Versus to your point of, what if I just brought in somebody as an SDR, an entry, a sales admin, whatever you want to call this person, to do some of those things? And I want to talk about it because that was something that when I came here that I learned very quickly, is that here you guys basically have, it's a process for that. You guys, we have interns that are now here permanent, right? So we have an internship program here at Rev. So we start like way, way back, like, hey, let's bring some kids in over the summer. But you guys bring in people like entry level people to do those things, and then you coach them and grow them and everything else. But I think that's a very interesting possibility at an MSP, to think differently, to hire somebody that's not the seasoned salesperson and get that person trained up and have them take off some of the admin stuff. I really like that idea. I
Yeah,
think
we
that has
hire based
legs.
on character and coachability over experience. I mean, we've always, since I've been here, that's been our
Aptitude and
process.
attitude is what I call it. If you've got that
Yeah,
hand up mentality, I will take that over somebody with experience every day of the week.
and I'm not saying that anybody that has experience couldn't be valuable bringing into your
Yeah,
business,
yeah.
but you have to be careful because usually they're pretty expensive. One, they're going to want to see a quick return on you know getting those commission checks, and if you're starting out and you barely have a process put together, you got a shorter timeline to keep them satisfied. You bring somebody first job right out of school, you interview them the right way, you really understand that there's someone that's going to stick with you and wants to learn and is going to stay loyal to the company. I mean, I've got some incredible success stories just here on my team where that's worked out really well for us.
So tell me one story. Tell me one story where somebody started
Oh
like
man,
way down bottom of the totem pole, and tell me where they're at now. Because I love hearing those stories. I like the people part of it because I think people just
should I
in
say the
general lose
names?
sight of the people. Yeah, we could say the names. I'll give them. We shout out our people here all the time.
I mean, my boy Cam Sharp started at Rev.io as an intern when he was in college with no sales experience. Um, After the internship was over, he uh, he stayed on for a little bit. Then he decided to go test the waters and went to a few other software companies, and eventually came back, became an AE, was top rep, and is now one of my most trusted sales managers. So I mean, years and years of history, but it's incredible for me. That's where I get all the joy out of my job now. Moving away from closing deals myself and getting to watch guys like Cam come up through the ranks and starting to influence and build the next generation of sales professionals is really awesome.
I think that's more than just the process. Yeah, you got to have a process. You got to have a framework because, especially if you're hiring kids fresh out of college, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know anything. All they know is what they learned in college. Okay, fine. So you have to have this framework for them to follow. But I think part of it is because I've seen you in with the sales team. So I am currently in St. Pete. Everybody knows that I travel a lot, but I do try to go to the office in Atlanta, and we do have a good chunk of people that work for Rev that are based out of Atlanta. So they come into the office pretty regular, and I've seen the interactions of this. I call my sales boys, which is boys and girls. So my sales boys, I like to go hang out in the office in Atlanta with them. But there is definitely a part of this that's, it's the part that you can't see or touch. It's past the process. It's past the whatever. It's this relationship and this whatever that's built. And there's the people that are on this team. And it's sort of this, it's this cool vibe that's just there. I mean, because I've worked at a couple of different software companies, and I will say that it's very different here than the other places that I've worked. The teamwork that's here. I mean, yes, they're all salespeople. I tell you, they're coin driven, right? They all want to make their money, but how people operate here is very different. It is like team in every sense of the word, that if somebody else can help somebody else close a deal, regardless if they're like getting paid on it, they will go help that person. And I think that speaks to you sort of as the leader of this team and this team that you've built, that that's a mentality like, yes, everybody's hard charging, everybody's driving, everybody wants to make their money, but everybody's, again, at the end of the day, is there to help everybody else.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I'll tell you what, managing a big team of younger sales professionals and a pandemic happening, and all of a sudden overnight the entire team is working from home for 2 years straight. That was definitely a big challenge for us. Like I was itching to get us back in the office because sales is hard. It is a grind.
It is.
You're getting rejected all throughout the day. And if you're sitting there by yourself at home, like it's a lot worse than if you're sitting next to a coworker and yeah, they heard the call, maybe one side of it, and they're like, "Hey, don't worry about that. Nothing's gonna happen." Like you get to bounce feedback off each other, and it's yeah, we try to have fun. Took the team to a Braves game last week. We try to do happy hours and contests, and we track all of our records for every possible metric that we can, and try to celebrate when people break records. I mean, you're looking for competitive people, so I think you got to create a culture for that. We want everyone to be friendly, but we also want them to be like, I got it. I want to have the best results out of everybody in my role, and if there's like some healthy competition there. So it's not easy, but I appreciate you saying all those nice things.
Yes. So we were talking, everybody wants to make their money. So let's talk about money and comp. Because I know that's a big discussion and I know something that MSP struggle with because it's very, as an MSP, again, we hire people to fix problems, right? I'm here to build a network. I'm here to fix a server problem, install a firewall, whatever it is. And I get paid a certain amount of money per year, per hour, however you decide to slice and dice it. But sales is very different. And it's usually the first time at an MSP where I've got to pay somebody some sort of a base, and then I got to give them some chunk of money that goes along with what it is that they sell. And it's very similar to like software. I'm not selling something that you can touch. I'm not selling you like a cool box of things that you can take home and put on a shelf and do cool things with. And the MSP space is very similar. Is I'm selling you a solution. I'm selling you something that's going to fix a multitude of problems. So when you're selling that, how do you figure out how do you figure out how to make that compensation work for the first person that, and you've never paid anybody like this before? Because all of us are like fixers. We charge a flat rate to do X, Y, and Z or per hour or whatever. So how do you figure out how to make that work?
Commissions are wild because everybody does them differently. Like that is just
So
something
is
that
there no
like
standard? Is there no like
I think
base?
there's definitely some baselines, but I think the one thing you got
Okay.
to be open to is it's gonna change. Like you're gonna try a commission structure. You're gonna do it for a period of time, and you're gonna have to make adjustments to it. So making sure that you understand that and you get out ahead of something, like you're gonna have a situation where you might have to overpay somebody because you didn't think of every scenario, or the opposite. You bring somebody in, you tell them what their on target earnings are, and they're not getting that, and then you're risking you invested all this time in this person, and now they're looking for another job. So I'd say what I try to do, and this is what I've seen in the industry, is a salesperson's total earnings, it should be about 50% base, 50% commission. That's a good rule to live by. So when you're bringing somebody in and they tell you how much they want to make, or you have a budgeted amount of how much you want them to make, all in with salary and benefits, that's a
Okay.
good rule of thumb to kind of stick to. But it depends on the role too. We have client solutions advisors. They're heavily incentivized to grow revenue inside of our existing base. So their comp's going to be a little bit different. Maybe we look at they're assigned a cohort of clients and they get a some type of percentage of compensation off total growth inside their cohort, right? Because it's not just about selling a customer something one time and then wiping your hands clean, right? We want them to continue to stay engaged with them, and if churn happens, you want to make sure that they're just as incentivized to make sure that that doesn't happen. So
And
I'll
that's the
say,
same thing at an MSP is because I mean they
yeah,
don't want to talk about that upsell cross sell, but I mean we have new at an MSP there's something new that came out. There's a new solution. There's
yeah.
some sort of new tool that I'm going to be able to implement. And as an MSP owner, I got to figure out, am I going to like foot the bill for that? Or do I need to like add this as this is like you can have our regular vanilla bean security, or you can have like our advanced security option. And how are you going to charge for that? I do want to ask about that 50/50 because I've seen it at a couple places where it has gotten wildly out of hand because you have to obviously we want to pay them a fair salary, a fair wage. You need to be able to like pay your bills, but at the same time I need you to not make so much that you don't want to sell. Like there was a place that I worked at, and the base, I will tell you privately outside of this call because it's going to make your head spin. And then that person was just like, yeah, if I sell, great, whatever. If I don't sell, I'm still making plenty of money. So I think you have to have that sort of that split so that they want to go get that extra paycheck. Because in my opinion, if you give them too much, then there's no incentive for them to go sell. I literally have seen it at two software companies that I've worked at, and it was their number one salesperson, and they kept promoting that person. And then at some point, their base got so high that I was in a sales meeting and I was just like, why would I sell if I'm this dude? Like, I mean, I can take 2 calls a week. Who cares? I mean, I am
They're
paying all
sandbagging
my
for the
bills
next
on the.
period. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
who cares? So I think it's like you have that we start with a 50-50, but you have these really good salespeople, so you want to keep moving them up. So how do you keep moving them up, but you don't run the risk of all of a sudden now the base is so high that, I mean, if I sell, great. If I don't sell, I'm still getting paid, still paying my bills.
Yeah. I see that happen all the time, especially in like big
Yes.
technology companies. One, they cap commissions. So if somebody crushes their quota and their commissions are capped, like what incentive do they have to
I'm
keep
going to
trying?
stop selling. If you won't let me make any
Yeah.
more
I
money,
mean,
what's the point?
yeah. So we've never taken that philosophy. We typically have you
Okay.
get paid a percentage up to 100% of your quota. When
Okay.
you get to 100% and up to 120, 125%, you get a higher percentage. So you're making more money on that next tier of revenue that you sell.
Interesting. Okay.
And if you go from 125 to 150, continues to go up. And we're not capping commission because at the end of the day, if the commission plan is right and the salesperson is bringing in these massive amounts of revenue, and you have to pay them a lot of money, I mean, they still brought the revenue in the door. Like, pay them, write the check. It's
Who
worth it. It's worth
cares?
it.
Yeah.
So they're paying for themselves. So I think, yeah, I've seen some just nightmare situations. I have a buddy who I think is at his quota for the entire year already. I won't say what company, but
He's already hit
I
it.
remember, yeah, he's already hit it almost
It's
for the
May.
entire year, and it's May. I was like, "Are you gonna take
I,
a
and
vacation?
I've
What are you gonna
seen
do?"
other companies like that, and this sounds terrible. So, I mean, again, I think we have to, you have to figure that out for your MSP. I like your rule of sort of
Yeah,
starting with the 50-50 split, but I've seen other guys. It's like before the halfway into the point of the year, they've already done everything they need to do. They're good to go. And so then they just coast, show up to the
you
events, do the whatever. It's like a vacation.
shouldn't be disappointed if you have to write a salesperson a big commission check. You should be celebrating that.
Heck yeah.
I remember many years ago, I closed some big deals, and Evan got like a huge check made for me and like presented to me in the office. I still have it somewhere, but
I
like
love
I
that.
love that. Like that shows that like they're invested in my success. They're not stingy. They're not going to try to cheat me out of getting them the commission that I'm earned, right? And I think that's an important culture. It's got to start from day one.
And we do incentives like that all the time. You do things like that on your team. Like y'all had a casino night a
Yeah,
while back, and people were able to like basically the things that they did. You guys gave them like chips or whatever, so they could play games like
yeah.
that. And we also have this big, gigantic like gong in the office. The first time I was there, I was like, "What is that? What is happening with that noise?" But when somebody makes a sale, they literally go over there and like hit this gong. It reverberates around the entire office. But now that I know what it's for, it's really cool. I want to hear that thing go off a ton while I'm in the office. I would rather explain on a call, yep, somebody else just made a sale. Do you want to get on board or do you not want to get on board because the ship's sailing?
Yeah. I mean, try to gamify anything that you can. So you can have your base commission plan, but then also run some contests on top of it, especially you have like a specific initiative, or maybe there's one product that you're struggling to sell and you're
Oh, I
worried
like
that
that.
maybe the sales team isn't speaking about it enough. A great way to get more attention on it is you run a contest through the end of the month, through the end of the quarter. You track it like crazy. You give updates on it all the time. Throw them a few extra $1,000, whatever it may be. It's a great tactic to make sure that your team is focused in the right areas. So we try to do that as much as we can. It gets tough to stay creative with it. We definitely have had some
But
contests that
it's
we thought were
fun
going to be
because
really
to your
cool,
point, I
fell
mean,
flat.
sales
Yeah,
sales is a grind. I
yeah,
was the first time that I really had like interaction with a sales team. I was working for another company and I went to their office in Vancouver. So I was hanging out with the sales boys, listening, and they were telling me that they're making like 100 calls a day. And I was just like, what? I mean, I had no idea. Again, that was like my first, because again, I'm like MSP, IT, whatever type girl. I had never been in the sales organization at all, period. And so I was like, 100? And they were like, yeah, they were like, and 80 people are hanging up on me. And I was like, every day. And they were like, yeah, Brooke, every day. And I was just like, what in the heck? So that motivated me to make sure, like, when I go to the events, what can I do to make these leads, whatever, because they're going to have to call these people. Because I'm thinking to myself, how can I make these phone calls suck less, right? How can I make these phone calls easier for y'all to make? But I did not realize sort of that number of that backwards math that y'all have to have that says we have to do this much per day to get to this, to be able to get to a close. This is what it takes. And that backwards math is, for this particular company, it was every single person had to make 100 calls a day, which I was just, again, but it was eye opening, but in a good way, because it made me understand more of the process and how so many other people play a part in that process. I tell people that's a lesson that I've learned at other software companies. If sales does not sell, I do not have a job. Nobody does. Same thing at the MSP. If sales is not selling and bringing more people in, then we don't have jobs. We can't keep the lights on. We can't make salaries. So what is it that we can all do to sort of help that sales process? And again, that was something I had no idea. It's an incredibly difficult job, again, because you're getting so many no's, 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 no's. So when you get the yes, heck yeah, we are ringing that gong. We are celebrating. We are doing a big hoodoo in Teams. We're sending out emails, all that kind of stuff, because what the heck, it's a lot to get to that point.
Yeah, I will say to the point that you just brought up, you make 100 calls and 80 people hang up on you. There's still value in that hang up if the rep got to a point where they're able to say the name of your company and explain what you do. Like there are these, especially if you have a brand that not a lot of people recognize. Like even when you don't set the meeting, there's still value in that call. Like being able to explain your services. Like sometimes it's just not the right time. You catch somebody when they're having a bad day, but you're plugging your brand into their brain and you're disengaging, and you come back later, you might send them an email, you might connect them on LinkedIn. Like it builds up over time, and whether they realize it or not, like they're helping market your business. I focus more on the conversations than the total number of calls,
Okay.
because to me, if you make 100 calls and have 3 conversations, but if you make 50 calls and have 6 conversations, I'd much rather take the 50 calls, right? Um, we have an activity model that we run inside our sales organization that is not like super difficult, where people are like staying until 7 o'clock to get to their points,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it creates some structure on the team. So if you have a day where maybe you took your time and you sent a few more personalized emails, or really did some research and called some big accounts, and you set some meetings, like you get points for meetings scheduled, conversations had. So there's a lot of
Okay.
different ways to get to the point threshold. And that's great for younger sales professionals because they just need a recipe for like, what does a good day look like? You could still have a good day if you don't set any meetings. Obviously, the goal is to set meetings as an SDR. But, I think especially if you're going to scale the team, having those expectations established very early is important.
So then I want that leads me to another thing that I want to talk about, because I was on because y'all have been nice enough to let me hang out on the sales calls and the sales meetings. I was on a sales meeting with Kim and Brian a couple weeks ago, and they were doing a training, and they were talking about, so you're talking about sort of like the younger people, and they were talking about specifically like time management, and it's something
Mhm.
that we do here that I think would be really helpful for you to share. And it's something that I don't know that everybody calls this, maybe this is like a sales thing and I just don't know, but y'all called it time blocking. And it's sort of where you teach the younger people how to block their day so that they're doing certain things in certain chunks to try to focus better. So I wanted maybe you to share a little information on that, because I thought that was wildly helpful. Because I mean, I can use that like not as a salesperson, but it was something that I hadn't really thought about how to sort of like chunk those things out a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, there's just skills you have to teach younger sales professionals that they might learn some of that in college, but when you get into the workforce, they're not used to working a true career and what the day to day looks like. So there's definitely a learning curve there. So for time blocking, every day is different for a salesperson. And I think one thing that applies to a lot of the MSP owners that we speak to is you might be back to back solving customer issues, speaking to vendors, and at the end of the day, you're just totally spent, and you didn't make any efforts to build or
Yep.
nurture your pipeline. So like that's my biggest fear when we have a sales team that's responsible for selling a lot of different products. They're responsible for talking about all these awesome events and parties that Brooke is planning. There's all these things that we ask them to do. It's not realistic for them to just walk in every day and just, yeah, I got this, and just remember and just go through the day and not miss something. So time blocking, make sure that you dedicate usually every 30 minutes, every hour, like plan out your day. We try to get the SDRs in the habit of doing it too. You got an open block on your calendar. What's something that you can fill that block with that's going to help you be successful for the day? I think for the MSPs, like you need to dedicate, I think Brooke, you were saying like what, an hour a day, certain amount of outreach attempts per day. to continue to make those investments to try to build your pipeline of new customers. It's not something that just happens overnight. Like you gotta do it consistently over time, and you gotta hold those time blocks that you're gonna dedicate to sales as
I
like,
think you have to be super firm on that because if
yeah,
not, then it's just to your point, all of a sudden they're dealing with all this other stuff. And then at the end of the day, you're tired, you're ready to go home, you got family stuff you got to do, or you're
yeah,
going to a Braves game or whatever. And I just don't have time to deal with that tonight. Um,
yeah.
but I think if
It's a
I
lagging
think that
indicator.
becomes and it becomes like cyclical. Like you get on this cycle and then you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start with that next week. I'm gonna start with that next week. And then you don't, and then you're in the same boat. And to the MSP owners that are on here, it's the same thing that I coach you guys about giving over some of the technical stuff to your technical staff. If you are still the guy or girl that's helping deal with the stinking server downs and everything else because you can do it faster and better than everybody else, then your MSP will not grow. As I'm sitting in this chair, I'm telling you, we cannot get past a certain point revenue wise. And I know you want to get past that point because there's an exit plan in your life somewhere down the line. You're either going to sell, you're going to give it to a kid, you're going to, do whatever, merge with somebody else. But you're not going to get to that point if we can't get out of that circle that we just keep riding around in. Same thing on the technical side is the same thing on the sales side. If you just keep riding around in the circle of, I've got more important things to do, I got to go help the guys with this project, or the HR or the finance person needs help with this, that, and the third. If you don't make it urgent, then it never becomes urgent, and then you're not going to get to that point. So that's why I think that time blocking thing helps.
Yeah,
No matter, figure out in your day when you, and again, we all have meetings. Some days I have meetings from start to finish, but I still have those blocks. I got to get them done. It does. And I will tell people I can't. There's this hour I have to do these things because if I don't, then we're not going to get the results that we're looking for. So I think you have to make it a habit. It's like anything else. What's that stat? How many times you have to do something before it comes a habit?
forgot.
It's
Well,
months.
20.
It's that you have to repeat to be able to do those things. So again, I think you have to make it a habit. So we're getting close on time here. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat just yet. So we're gonna shift here real quick and try to just sort of make this full circle and bring it back
Yeah,
around.
let's do it.
So I kind of want to talk about this whole conversation that sales is kind of a dirty word in the MSP space, and it's not. It's something that's necessary. I've learned it the hard way by working at companies where sales didn't sell, and then I magically didn't have a job. So sales is a very necessary part of any organization, even your MSP. It is not a bad word. It can be a very healthy and great and good thing for your MSP. So I need people to understand that from somebody that is a salesperson and has grown this company. And we don't have what I call a meat grinder here. It is not that. We have extremely low turnover on our sales team, which is very, very unusual. We have people, to yourself, have been here, a decade or more. We have people like Cam that started as an intern. So clearly you've built something that has made sales be not the bad word, that it's a great place to work, it's a fun place to work, and that it's not something that's negative.
Yeah, I mean, we're on a mission to change that stereotype. I think most MSPs, they think of sales, they're thinking of that used car salesman that
Yep.
they probably met with at some point in their life that had the high pressure, one-sided salesperson wins, customer loses, and it just doesn't feel right. You just like, so I try to make sure that from the very first interaction with a potential customer, that we're trying to show them that we care, because we do, and that we're listening and we're asking a lot of really intentional questions, and we're incorporating that into our presentation. And it never feels like they're just being ran through the same process as the next company we're going to meet with. So it's very delicate. There's a lot of people out there that give sales a bad name. But I think for MSP specifically, I mean, that your sales cycle is very different. Like, you're asking someone to trust you with their entire IT infrastructure. That's not a transactional sale. I
Nope.
guess it could potentially be a one call close if you're really good, but I would assume
We're not
probably
selling
not.
widgets.
Yeah. But I mean, if they're in really bad shape, maybe they just had a massive attack. But yeah, I would say you got to make sure that you're solving problems. And the one thing we try to teach our sales team very early on is active listening. It's not talked about enough. Like, can you really sit there, ask a question, and truly listen to what that person is responding to you with, and then ask a really thoughtful follow-up question to that? The worst thing I think a salesperson could do is ask a question and the potential customer responds, and then they just ask a completely irrelevant question and move
Just
on.
reading off of a script, which I cannot
They're
stand.
just
I
there's
hate
it
that.
doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel
Yep.
good. So, bad salespeople just try to get the signature at any cost. The type of sales experience that we're walking our customers through is trying to actually help somebody. But if we can't help you, I want to make sure my team is honest and able to tell them that. So it's not
100%.
manipulation. It's integrity is very important. But I do think that probably the most important thing I wanted to bring up in this conversation was that there are some common denominators that IT MSP owners need to make sure they realize are important in a sales meeting. It doesn't come off salesy if you do it the right way. Something as simple as setting next steps at the end of a call. If you have a really good conversation with somebody, don't leave it as, "Hey, we'll let you think about it. Follow up with us when you're ready to have another conversation." If you believe that your solution is going to genuinely help their company, you need to assumptively tell them, "Hey, this is what the next step in our process is. Let's get this on the books." We got to keep the momentum going. If you allow people to
Absolutely.
come to the conclusion themselves, you're just never going to have any insight into what your true pipeline looks like. And you got to have confidence. And the same thing goes for closing. Like, you got to make sure that you're asking people for their business if you've done the proper due diligence and you've diagnosed their problems and you've shown them solutions. You got to, with confidence, ask them, "Hey, what's stopping us from getting this partnership wrapped up? I'm very excited to help you solve X, Y, and Z. I'm going to send the contract over.
And
Let's
I
get
think
this
there's a
signed by
way
the
to
end of the day."
say that and not be
Yeah,
like the swarmy used car salesperson,
absolutely.
right? I think there's a good way to say that.
You can close without being a cheesy salesperson, but you got to ask.
100%.
You
You
got to
gotta
ask
ask. You
because
gotta ask. And that's so if one thing anybody takes away from this call where Ryan and I like went off the rails fairly early
oh yeah, big time.
is you have to ask. If that's one thing that you take away today from this webinar, this podcast that we have, is you have to ask at the end. You can't just assume that they understand. You need to ask, and asking is okay, and it doesn't have to be sleazy, and it's just a what do we need to do to get this done? Because I want to be able to take care of you guys and help y'all grow. So I'm going to go ahead and get that contract sent over, and I can't wait to get started with y'all. So the ask, if that's the one thing that you get today, is the ask. Um, so
Because
everybody,
the
I
answer to
appreciate
that is super. Even if it's a no, like I would love to get a no
something
over a
one way or
maybe.
another.
I want to know if this is something I can spend my time on and be excited about. If not, totally fine. But I don't like being in limbo.
But if you don't ask, then you don't know, to your point.
Exactly.
So do the ask because you need a yes, a no, or a maybe. But if you don't ask, you have no idea what the three answers are going to be. So everybody come in today. I really appreciate y'all. I appreciate Ryan joining me today for our first live podcast ever. We at the end of this one, so Evan is probably not going to be thrilled with this, but we are giving away the document that we use here at Rev.io. It is not gate kept. We're going to have a QR code at the end of this. Also, we will have a link in the email that we send out to everybody as well. We're going to post this on YouTube, so you'll be able to get that information there as well. If you want to talk to Ryan, again, he is like one of the most easygoing, nice guys, always willing to help and share with people. He helps our clients that we have here at Rev.io. If they're struggling with sales, he will jump on a call with them. It's Ryan.Koontz at Rev.io. I'm Brooke at Rev.io, no E on my name. Feel free to reach out with us, connect with us on LinkedIn. We are more than happy to help anybody that needs help. If you're connected with me and you need it, again, I'm always not the girl that knows, but I'll get you pointed in the right direction. We've got a ton of people here with a lot of experience. We're going to share that document with you guys. Also, there's going to be a QR code at the end of this. If you want to see how Rev.io is helping MSPs be better, how we're helping them be more efficient, we have an entire solution here. So yes, it's the PSA, and that's what I'm here for because I'm the MSP PSA girl. But we also have a really robust billing platform that we have available for our clients as well, also with Cyber Protect. So if any of those things interested you, please feel free to scan us. Again, reach out to Ryan or myself. Ryan, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys out on the road.
Thanks, everybody.